Hey guys, thanks for watching. I'm Tim Ashan. Today we're going to review Vampire Survivors. Alright guys, now there's a really strong word of mouth going around about this game, so you may have heard about it, you may have seen it on some streams. It's got overwhelmingly positive reviews. Right now on Steam, there's like 70,000 reviews, so people seem to like it. I saw it on Asmongold's stream. He was playing it. It looked pretty fun. So I decided to pay the $3 and play it, and these are my thoughts on it. Now, just a quick overview of the game. It's a roguelike game, and it's pretty straightforward. We start out as very weak, and there's a horde of creatures that are just constantly trying to kill you. You collect and upgrade your weapons, and they passively attack. So you're not pressing buttons, you're not shooting anything like you are in a lot of games. In this one, they're just passively on timers. You can reduce those timers. You can get some companion items that give you some bonuses to them, and your weapons will get stronger as the game and the playthrough goes on. Now, throughout your playthrough, you'll also collect gold. And that gold is that roguelite element, right? So once you die in that playthrough, you can then spend the gold, which you get to keep, on some upgrades. Those upgrades will stay with you permanently now every time you start and play a game. So that's the basics. Now, some of the positives that I found with this game. Varied weapons and characters. So you're going to see the Castlevania influence, which is great. I love that vibe. So if you ever played the very original Castlevania, back in the Nintendo days, the original NES days, you'll recognize some of the weapons, the boomerang, the axe, the whip on the very first character. It's all very cool. So that's fun vibe. Then there's quite a few of them, and there's a lot of cool combinations to try. Upgrading those weapons feels like it makes a difference. I like that. That's a positive. So you're not upgrading something and feeling like, okay, I'm not doing that much damage. So it doesn't necessarily feel very incremental. Sometimes it does, but most of the time you feel like you made a leap when you actually select a new weapon, or especially as you start upgrading your existing weapons. And it's fun to learn what each weapon does, how they work together. Getting the really strong versions, or the evolved weapons is what it's called. That's really cool because it's like a completely different style weapon, and all of a sudden you're doing this massive damage, and you're like, yeah, that feels good. Early on, especially when you're weak, there might be a lot of those last second escapes, like you're almost dead, or the monsters are closing in and you're able to just sneak out. That's fun. Obliterating hordes feels pretty good. So if you ever played like Diablo games, for instance, you know what it's like to come across a big pack and then just boom, you just delete that pack. It feels just as good in this game as well, doing something like that. The normal enemies have very interesting behavior. I like this. So there's a variety. It's not just monsters just streaming at you. That's happening, but you'll see some different behavior. There's some monsters that pop up that actually do shoot like fireballs. There is a point very early on where all of a sudden there's a ring of these flower creatures around you, and it's a complete ring, and they're slowly closing in on you. And there's a few different things like that, which are really cool as well. There's also kind of a challenge mode. It's called hyper mode, and that's where everything is just faster. You get more gold as you go through it, but everything moves faster. And since in some cases there's like these swarms that are moving fast anyway, it can be hard to avoid those. That's cool. I like challenges like that. Now, some of the negatives. So the map variety. What I would say about that is that some of the backgrounds were cool. I kind of liked that. But in the end, it's still just a map. It's all 2D sprites and you're moving around on it. So the gameplay doesn't really change. Some of the map has some unique things on them, but not all of them. So I'd say maybe a little more map variety. And I always hate giving criticism without maybe a potential solution, because I'm not sure exactly how they could incorporate some changes in the maps. But something would be nice. And as far as some more variety, the bosses as well. So there's the normal creatures, which have cool variety. The bosses, though, all just seem to be like big versions of smaller creatures. There's one or two unique ones, but as far as I can tell, none of them do anything unique. So they don't have any special, powers or abilities or anything like that that you need to be aware of. They just have a lot more hit points, and then they give you the chest. So it'd be cool to have something like that. I would also say this may not be too bad, but the meta is just repeatable. What I mean by that is that once you kind of figure out what works really well together, it's not that hard to really kind of focus on that. Um, there are certain things that don't work at all together, and you're going to avoid those. Early on, it can be tough, of course, but especially as you move on, there's enough levels, enough chests that you're like, okay, once you found something that works, most of the time I could have gotten all of those pieces of equipment every playthrough and gotten them leveled up. So maybe a little more variety on what works together would be cool. Then again, it kind of is what it is. It's that type of game. So what are you going to do? Now, with the positive negatives in the final analysis, right? The question is it fun to play? The answer is yes. You get more powerful and you're just deleting these monsters as they come at you. It's super fun. I highly recommend this game. It's not something you're obviously going to probably spend like the next months and months playing just straight through. That said, what I expect to kind of happen is, you're probably going to play for a bit right now. 10, 12, 15, 20 hours over the next week, and then you might put it down. Okay. And you know what? A month or two from now, you might come across me like, oh yeah, that game. That was pretty fun. Pick it up, maybe play it for a few more hours. It's easy to jump into. You're not going to have forgotten like any complicated systems. So you can just jump in and jump out anytime without it being less fun, in my opinion. So I think it's something that you'll find you'll play over the next couple years. Even if you're not sitting down, you're not going to put 90 hours into it like you might Elden Ring or something like that. But that's okay. It's a fun game for $3. I recommend getting it, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did.